TJ Dillashaw versus Cory Sandhagen, and it really doesn't get better in mixed martial arts than a fight like this. Two top competitors at the apex of their game. Well, one coming back in honesty, TJ obviously coming back serving a suspension for taking illicit substances. But let's get into this fight because I think, you often don't miss what you have until it's gone. And TJ Dillashaw came back with an exclamation mark. And for TJ to come in, fighting the caliber of fighters such as, Cory Sandhagen, and delivering the performance that he did in the manner that he did, which is what we're going to talk about, is really interesting. Guys, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Let's get straight to the reaction video because, wow, this was a non-stop fight from start to beginning. And you know what? It was tight. It was a really, really tight fight. And, the decision showed it. It could have gone either of one way, and you probably would not have been, disappointed if Cory Sandhagen won this one. And obviously he was disappointed. But I think there's so many keys to what happened here and what TJ Dillashaw was able to, deliver as a fighter to get, the judge's decision. And it was amazing. Let's start off with aggression and pace. And in an interview after this, you see TJ talk about this. But TJ Dillashaw is aggressive. And he made a point in the beginning of every round to rush in, take the center of the octagon, and always, at least from an optics front perspective, make it feel that Cory Sandhagen was being backed off and fighting from that perspective, while TJ was, commanding the front, the middle of the center of the octagon and really taking up all that space and real estate. And I think this is really important here because, interestingly enough, from a damage perspective, it was relatively, you have to look at the faces of the two guys. TJ Dillashaw was getting pieced up, but, that visual of being able to be on the front foot, to be able to push someone to the edge of the cage, no matter how effective you can be. And Cory Sandhagen was just about as effective a striker, a fighter could be while getting pushed back. And you saw it because of his length, because of his unique proportions in this particular weight class. He was first to the punch in terms of the striking. He was the longer of the two fighters, and his jabs and the ones and twos were landing over and over again. Now, this is the first time that I've seen in a while, and obviously, not that TJ's coming back from, serving a 2-year suspension. So, say what you want about Rig Rust, but, fighting at the highest level, it is what it is. You cannot tell me that you can simulate that level of intensity over there. But the proportions and, the caliber of striker that Cory Sandhagen is made it such that, he was winning large chunks of the stand-up battle, even though he was being pushed, from a, cage sort of perspective. And again, this just goes to show how much diversity in weapons that TJ Dillashaw has. The second element that was really hyper impressive by TJ Dillashaw was the clinches and his ability to be able to wear on Cory Sandhagen, which really was going to be a key to victory there. The ability to change angles, duck in, get under Cory Sandhagen, get him in clinches, and even engage in clinch engagements during different levels of distances, just to simply give Cory Sandhagen something else to think about. And this is, again, TJ Dillashaw, I've never seen him necessarily outclassed on the feet. And you could say, some of you would argue that, Cory Sandhagen really had, outclassed TJ in the feet. And I'd say, you know what, you're not quite far off. What TJ did really well to break that aspect of the fight was engaging in clinch warfare, taking Cory against the cage and just putting his weight on him. And, you can see when these guys were against each other how much more diminutive TJ looked like. But, man, he's strong. He was able to take Cory Sandhagen down multiple times throughout the course of the fight. And, again, just simply giving Cory a secondary look rather than, simply the stand-up warfare. Really, it wore on Cory over time. And, in the scrambles, and there were a lot of sort of scrambles, TJ would somehow, and it's not somehow, he obviously has really good body, mechanics and intuition to be able to get on the top, get in advantageous positions, and while in no one time you could say that he was able to sustain Cory, you know, to the ground and land copious amounts of ground and pound. He was able to do this over and over again to really break down any element where Cory had a prolonged ascendancy within the striking capacity, and this was just amazing to watch. Amazing to see TJ be able to mix it up. And thirdly and lastly, you know, on the feet, he showed so much aggression. There were a lot of combinations being thrown, and again, Cory Sandhagen was really beating TJ to much of the punch, and again you can see it in his face, and Cory was able to rip and slip at a lot of TJ's, you know, strikes. But what TJ did really well was chaining combinations, and at the end of a lot of these combinations with these kicks, which were pow, they would land at Cory Sandhagen. And to be honest, in a fight where you're not necessarily having the respect from the other sort of opponent, which was to a degree what was happening with Cory, TJ was able to add these wrinkles and these diversities that basically made judging this a really complicated one. And I think there was this exchange in the fourth round where TJ was, you know, in the pocket. The other thing that TJ did really well was, while he was getting pieced up, he was willing to take a couple of punches to land his own. And I think it's that desperation, that urgency. And don't get me wrong, this wasn't a brawl. TJ was able to mix all these elements of mixed martial arts at the highest level against the highest caliber of opponent to provide so many different looks to a top of his game Cory Sandhagen, and make this a dogfight in the most technical way you could ever have. And again, just to harken back in this exchange in the, you know, round 4, he was throwing a couple of combinations. He slipped under a Cory Sandhagen, either 1 or 2, a hook, I cannot remember. He went around and got around the back and tied him in the clinch, and that's such a slick interchange of movement, and just goes to show the highest level of mixed martial arts that you're able to see. And I won't lie, you know, heading into the decision rounds, I had no clue who was going to win it. And, you know, it was generally a tough bout to score. But, you know, when you think of the totality of it, and obviously Cory Sandhagen has every right to be disappointed because he really poured his heart and soul there. But, you know, if I were Cory, or if I was in Cory's, you know, camp dissecting the fight, the only thing that I can say was, he probably needed to show he was counter-striking, and maybe a level of offensive urgency, for lack of a better term, may have held him in higher regard by the judges. And I think, you know, maybe being the individual going forward as opposed to be back may have landed him there. But great fighters. The bantamweight division is absolutely richer for having TJ Dillashaw back. And wow, we are so excited to see. I want to see TJ Dillashaw versus Peter Yan. I want to see this fight bad. As for Cory Sandhagen, this is a tough one. Rob Font, I think that seems to be the next one for me. That's such a poppin' division. Anyway, guys, that was my reaction video. Again, please give us a thumbs up. Leave your comments below. What did you think of this fight? What did you think of TJ Dillashaw's return to the UFC Octagon? Subscribe to the channel, and hope to catch you soon.